My work is a combination of my first career in teaching and my second iteration in coaching. And now I combine those two, but I work with books. So, when we were in school, the teacher would teach us the lesson and we'd take the notes and then go home and do the practice, the homework.
Yeah.
So my model flips that around. They get the lessons through the book at home. And then when we meet, the practice happens when we're all together.
Hi everyone, and welcome to There's a Workshop for That. Today I'm joined by someone who brings a beautiful, unique blend of coaching, facilitation, and a deep love of books into her practice. Theresa Destrebecq, the founder of Emerging Book Circles, is with me, and Theresa helps organizations and teams navigate through growth, complexity, and transformation, not just through conversation, but through the shared experience of reading. Her emerging book circles are not your average book clubs. They're intentional spaces where reading becomes a doorway to deeper learning, dialogue, and change. And if you ever wondered how books can move beyond the shelf and into the heart of your facilitation practice, this episode is for you. Hey, Theresa, how are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you, Nati. Can I make a correction? It's not emerging.
Yeah, please.
It's just emerge. That's okay.
Emerged.
Just emerge book circles. Yeah.
You see. But the joke is that I'm French, trying to speak your language. You are in France, but you are American, right?
Well, yes, and I'm French now as well. So I'm dual nationality. Yes. So we could do this podcast in French, and then maybe people wouldn't know what we're talking about, though.
Hi, Theresa. I'm very, very happy to have you here. We met a few months ago, I think, at the end of the year, because you joined the Fit for Facilitation community. We had a conversation because I made some interviews and you talked about your book circle with me. And I was very, very intrigued how you do this. But before we dive into the subject, I would love to hear, what is your background and how did you come into facilitation?
So my background is quite long and wandering. So my first career was as a traditional school teacher. So I taught high school history. And then I realized that I was too close in age to my students, actually, because I was 22 and some of them were 18. And some of them, I actually had a student who was older than me at one point. Because if you're a student who's immigrated to the United States, you can stay in high school longer. So that was interesting. So then I moved to middle school. So in French, it's collège. And I taught a whole range of different things. So I taught English and I taught history and I taught math and I ran a program for children with autism. I worked with English language learners. I worked with people with various disabilities. I get bored kind of easily. So I could never be that teacher that teaches the same thing all the time. So I was always every couple of years changing and teaching something different. And then I moved into educational leadership. So I became a school assistant principal and principal. And then I left all of it behind. I was like, that was my career. That was where I was going. And then I completely left all of it. And I wandered for a while, not sure what to do. And then I got introduced to someone who was doing e-learning for coaches. And so I was brought in, since I had the background in education, to become an e-learning designer for them. But I had to get certified to be a coach because I needed to have the content in order to create the behind the scenes e-learning curriculum. And so I became a coach and I was like, well, wait, no, I kind of want to do this. So I started coaching people, individuals, and I narrowed down to finding my niche. And I created a program called the Bad Boss Detox, which is all about supporting people from negative work situations and organizations, specifically with a boss or not, to finding their grounding and confidence again. And then I kind of burnt out on that. And I was like, I'm reading all these books. I love all these books. I'm really into personal leadership and personal development. So why don't I do something with books? And that's how it started. Originally, it was a 100% B2C. And then it was hard for me to differentiate between a book club and a book circle and how to monetize that. And eventually I found my way into working directly with organizations. So it's really, the way I see it is my work is a combination of my first career in teaching
Mm-hmm.
and my second iteration in coaching. And now I combine those to work, but I work with books. So, when we were in school, the teacher would teach us the lesson and we'd take the notes and then we'd go home and do the practice, the homework.
Yeah.
So my model flips that around. So they get the lessons through the book at home. And then when we meet, the practice happens when we're all together.
This is the principle of the book circle, right? It's so interesting. Yeah, because why not using what is already existing? But the fact is that most of us, so I read also books. I have a few books about facilitation on my desk right now, or meditation, initiation of a meditation. But this is always the thing. You read, you get a lot of information and then you don't apply.
It's what I call shelf development.
Yeah. So now you use this book so that people are applying this, right?
Yeah. So they're reading at home and I'm sending them journaling questions, or they have a learning partner and they are, meeting outside of our sessions with their learning partner and asking each other questions. And that's where the discussion happens. Kind of like in a book club, you discuss the ideas. So that happens outside of our sessions. And in our sessions together, it's really about implementing and experiencing the ideas. It's kind of like a laboratory. So when you went to high school, you would have a lab assignment and you would go in your small teams and you would figure out, you would dissect the frog or the shark or the pig. That's what I had to do when I was younger. Or you would, do some chemistry or physics. So that's kind of like the book circle sessions are like mini laboratories of how do we play with and experiment and explore with these ideas. So what do they really mean for us in the context of our work?
I know. I would like to understand how, with which kind of challenges organizations reach out to you. Do they reach out because they want a book circle experience, or do they reach out to you with specific problems and then you present them the book circles and how it works?
So typically they reach out to me because of the book circle,
Okay.
because they want something, they're open to something different than a traditional training. Because my work, people are learning, but I'm not the trainer. So it's not me giving expert advice, which is actually allows me a lot of freedom because I'm not there to tell people what to do. So they're just making the decision for themselves. So it's quite empowering for them. And so they come to me, they've heard about the book circles from somebody else. All of my work is usually word of mouth. So somebody who works in learning and development in one company will introduce me to somebody in another company. We've been using Theresa. Everybody has great feedback. We think, I thought you might like it. And then they come and I explain kind of how it works. And then from there, I usually ask them, what are the other training programs that you have? What are you working on? Kind of, do you have any themes? Some of the organizations that I work with have themes around this is the focus for this year. 2026 is all about empowerment. 5 is all about navigating uncertainty or emotional intelligence or something. They usually have some sort of theme. And then we choose a book based on that theme or multiple books based on that theme.
So it means that you have a collection of books for each kind of theme and then you propose one. You ask them first to read it and then to choose, or they trust you and you can
They trust me
find.
usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will offer a couple of different books and I'll give them, there's this book which talks about this, and there's this book that talks about this, and they'll usually read reviews or ask, AI for what they think. And so for me, there's certain books that lend themselves to having an experiential learning and others that don't as much. So for me, there might be a great book that's got a lot of theory, but for us to put it into practice would be more difficult. So the more practical lending books, the more ones that we can role play or that we can do improv around or things like that we can get into, those are often much easier for me.
Okay. So, and then you meet the team, and most of the time, this is a group of, this is a team, for example, of project managers, or these are cross-functional teams, or or it depends on the organization.
It depends on the organization. So sometimes I'll work with an intact team. Sometimes I will work with like a senior leadership team. Sometimes I work with a lot of women's networks. So it's all women working around some things. And then sometimes it's a peer. So it's literally put out to the organization. Teresa's coming in, we're doing a book circle on this. Who wants to partake? And it's, open wide. And so in that case, sometimes I'll do, depending on demand, I'll do 4 different cohorts with the same book at the same time or similar timing. So it depends kind of budgeting around the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And now if I would like to have a look in the process itself. When you have this group which is in front of you, you would, I guess, present the book first and why you choose this book. How do you proceed exactly with them?
So Each book circle is a minimum 8 hours of
Okay.
time together, but it's spread out every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first hour that we spent together, nobody has read any of the book. It's not like a book
Mm-hmm.
club where you have to read the book and then you talk. So nobody's read the book when we start. And that very first meeting is really about connecting with each other and
Yeah.
connecting with the ideas. So it looks a
Mm-hmm.
little bit different. If it's an intact team, everybody knows each other already. So then in that case, we'll get a little bit more into the content and what they think about the content, how they're using the content. But if it's a group of leaders from across the organization, because I work with a lot of global organizations, so I'll have someone in Switzerland and somebody in Liechtenstein and somebody in Scotland and someone in the UK and someone in Madrid. So everybody's spread out around Europe and they don't know each other. So really that first hour, that first session is really focused on getting them to know each other. And then also getting to know what is it that they want from the experience, what are their expectations, me presenting like 5 minutes about what this journey is going to look like and kind of my mindset and stance around it. And then in the next 4 to 5 sessions are an hour and a half, and those are content based. So they'll read part 1 of the book or the first 2 chapters of the book. And then I provide them those questions. They can choose to have a learning partner or not. They don't have to. And then I also do sketch summaries. So
Okay.
if they don't have time to read or they read it all right after that session and then 2 weeks later they don't remember what we read, they have a little sketch summary from me about what I think is the most important things. And I'm always inviting them, do your own sketch summaries. I'm not an artist. Like you can do it yourself. So because it's really important, reading is a really passive activity. So it doesn't become active unless you do something with it. So by sketching out or making notes or anything, having a conversation, it makes it more active. So they do that, and then we meet. Again, we get into the content, and the experience is different every time. Depends on what the ideas are. It depends on the group. Depends on the industry that they're working in. Sometimes you have to choose things. Sometimes it's case studies. Sometimes it's improv. Sometimes it's role plays. Sometimes it's something meditation related. It really depends on what the content is. And then we continue doing that until we get through all the content. And then the last session is the harvesting session. So that's where we pull. So in each session, they're going away with an action, but then at the very end, it's like, okay, we're leaving. So they're creating their own action plan, how they're going to implement the ideas. And then, so just before we're meeting, recording this, I just had a reunion. So
Mm-hmm.
we're done with the book circle. And then we had a little 30-minute after we'd finished, 30 minutes an hour or 2 months later, 30 minutes a month or 2 months later to say, what's changed since we've read this? How are things going? What support do you need?
For example, you had just finished a book circle with a team. Are they asking to have the next book and to start again? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just heard from one of these women. She said, I've volunteered for the next one. This one, we don't have one until September with this group. And she said, I asked to join it. And they said, I can't because I've already joined it. And I was like, but it's not the same book. And they're like, well, according to them, it's a book circle. It's even if the content is different, the book is different. They see it as the same. So that's a conversation that I'll probably have. It says, it seems like there's enough demand. And it's always a question of, is there enough budget? So in
Yeah.
some organizations, if there's really demand, but there's no central budget, I will open it up for people to, if there's enough people, there's enough demand that they can pay individually. So then it's
Mm-hmm.
not centrally allocated. And then actually people tend to be more involved in it because they've paid for it out of their own pocket.
Yeah, true,
Yeah.
true. What shift do you see? Because I guess there are a lot of great conversation, and I'm sure you have conversation about specific books where you really see that it has an impact of the people. Is there some shift you saw that were whether specific to a book, and you see this shift every time, or specific to a team who was doing this experience the first time that you keep in mind?
Well, I like to say at the beginning, I mean, every time I meet with a group, when people say, what does success look like for me? So the success for me is that they're leaving the experience not just informed, but
Mm-hmm.
changed, but
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that that change is going to look different for every single person. So I can't always pinpoint exactly. But if I think about just the group that I met with this morning, they were reading the book called The Advice Trap by
Mm-hmm.
Michael Bungay-Stanier, which is all about not becoming a coach, but about as a leader having more of a curiosity and coach like manner.
Mm-hmm.
And so just now checking in with the team, what has changed, if anything, since we did our work. And every single person said, I've been stepping back more, I've been asking more questions. The team is feeling more empowered. They're making more decisions. And because they're the ones making the decisions, they are more motivated and they're more engaged themselves. So I'm setting the direction, but they're actually the ones who are doing the work. So, and one of them, she's a manager of a team, and she said, I used to tell them what their goals were. And now this year we had our goal setting meetings, and instead of me telling them their goals, I said, this is the strategic vision. What goals do you think you need to have? And that's huge, I think, for leaders to be stepping back. And I think that's one of the conflicts that I often have when I work with organizations. I've never actually worked in a corporate setting ever.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I think it's actually good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes goals can be just passed down. This is your goal, and this is your goal, and this is your goal. And when you're being told what to do, you're going to sometimes have some resistance to it. Whereas when you're the one that's making the decision, that's why
Yeah.
coaching is such a great field, because you're the one that's empowered. You're the ones that are making the decision. It's not someone telling you what to do. And that's one of the drawbacks I find to traditional training. This is how you need to be a better leader, instead of based on these ideas, what do you need to do to be a better leader? I think they're two different frameworks.
Yeah, absolutely. So they become, you say coaching, I would say facilitative leadership. So asking questions and bringing the group to think about what they need first to reach the goal and what they can bring easily to reach the goal. And this is a kind of, yeah, facilitative leadership. They use the fact to ask questions, to listen deeply, to do active listening, to then bring the team to connect with the strategy of the company, if the strategy of the company is clear, because it's always another problem. But so through one book, you help them change their posture as a leader. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been, in this case, it was very much a mindset shift. I think other books
Mm-hmm.
lend themselves to more practical things. I mean, in this
Mm-hmm.
case, with the advice trap, it was both mindset shift. I don't need to be so directive, but also implementing that is asking more questions. So it's a combination of the two. And we did a lot of different work around that. And we actually, at one point, we did a role play where we did the kind of more coach-like approach to it. And then we did
Mm-hmm.
the more direct approach. So same challenge with a direct report, like somebody's not producing enough business or something, they're having an issue. That was it. So like, what would a coach-like approach be like, and what would be a more directive approach? And by contrasting those two, it was a massive light bulb moment to the people, to everybody actually. So then at the end, I said, okay, which manager do you want to work for? Do you want to work for the coach-like manager? Raise your hand. Do you want to work for the more directive manager? And it was really eye-opening, specifically for some of them in the group who are more directive, because they got to see how they probably come across to other people and to the people
Yeah,
they
I
work
think
with.
they don't realize. So if you put them in this situation, then they realize in the role play. I mean, if you put
Yeah,
them in this
exactly.
situation, then they realize how they are. I see your bibliothèque behind you, your library, or all the books sorted by colors. What are your favorite books to use in such a book circle with organizations?
I think one that I've really enjoyed a lot was the book Think Again by Adam
Okay.
Grant. I think I
Mm-hmm.
probably did it about 12 times, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that one of the struggles that a lot of people have is thinking, or is, how do we manage dissent? How do
Mm-hmm.
we create space for dissent? And then how do we shake up the things that we don't like? If we're a leader, there's our team, but then there's also the status quo and the processes in the organization. So how can we look at that differently and be more experimental when it comes to our work? Not in a way that's going to negatively potentially impact in big ways the organization, but how can we create these small experiments, and how can we think more scientifically? And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, a great part of Think Again from Adam Grant. Another book along the same vein I just did with a group of women, and it was called Defy by Dr. Sunita Saw, SAH. And that one was really great, and specifically for the women within an organization, specifically the industry, as it was a banking industry. And they chose the book. I didn't actually know the book, they chose the book. And that, looking at how in small ways we are unconsciously being compliant with people and processes. And that was really great as well, to kind of shake things up. And I also brought in some nonviolent communication to that
Mm-hmm.
book circle. So I have a pretty wide repertoire. And so even if a book has one focus, I will bring in other things to that focus. So it's like, how do we have that defiant conversation? That wasn't spoken about in the book. So I brought in nonviolent communication as a tool or a framework for them to use. And again, we practice those conversations. And sometimes I would be the one. They were like, I'm not exactly sure how to do it. And I was like, okay, can I share with you how I would do it? And even that was quite helpful for them. So that was a great book. There's so many good books.
I
The Advice Trap was a
know.
great book to do. What other books have I done that I've really liked?
I will make a list. Oh, guys, you will all have a list of all the books recommended by Theresa. Can you repeat the name, please?
The last one was The Six Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni.
Uh,
So that one is all about how in any type of project, there are certain things that need to get done in a project. And he named 6 of them. And essentially, none of us are ever going to be all good. None of us are ever going to be great at all 6 of them. And sometimes we find ourselves working in a team where things are unbalanced because we have people performing functions that they're not actually good at, and it's taking much longer. Whereas there's other people on the team who are better at that function. It would be better for almost for you to switch roles. And so the 6 types of working genius looks at what are you genius at of these 6. So mine is ideation and enablement. So I love being creative and coming up with ideas, and then I love helping people. So combining those two actually makes for what I do right now. So I love creating and ideating and coming up with a way to really look at a book in a different way and make it engaging. And I like helping people, which is what I'm doing through the workshop session. One of my biggest frustrations, which is another one of is tenacity. So you have your working genius, then you have your working competency, and then you have your working frustration. And one of mine is tenacity, which I'm really good at when I'm working with clients and I'm getting paid because I have to follow through. But if you look around my house, you'll notice a lot of unfinished projects. But that's because of that creative mind, I'm always going on to the next thing right away.
Yeah, me too.
So it's really hard for me. Like I got trained in nonviolent communication and I was like, oh, I'm going to keep going. But then like squirrel, I went off and started doing something else and that's why I have a really broad repertoire of books and other things because I've done lots of little things and I'm always going from one thing to another. But for that, it's really important to look at it as a team because you can really shift how you work together as a team if you really can understand one another's working geniuses and working frustrations.
Wow, so much resources here. Thank you so much. No, really. I will make a list on all the books that I really like the concept that you bring in organizations. I mean, organizations want other ways of learning. They don't want the slides and the trainer coming in the room and bringing his knowledge without any applying because it has no sense. After 1 week, you have forgotten everything what you did. So I really like it. And I know that every Monday you do the book reading hour, which is an open virtual session where we can come, but it's a little bit differently. It's you come with your own book, right?
Yeah. So it's really, I talk to a lot of people who want to read, but they're like, I never have time. It always gets dropped to the end of my list and things happen. And so I've now created this hour once a week on Mondays where we come together with other readers and you can block it on your calendar. And the first 10 to 15 minutes, I give you a question and you get to meet another reader or two. And so you go into breakout rooms and you have a short conversation with someone to really connect more deeply. And then we read for about 30 to 35 minutes. And so everybody goes off. Someone actually often listens. So they go for a walk for 30 minutes and listen to a book. And other people are reading novels. Some are reading poetry. Some are reading nonfiction. Some are reading reports or homework if they're in training. And then we come back again at the end for the last 10 to 15 minutes and we share what struck us or anything that really was an aha moment that we had. And then we go off on our day and that's it. So yeah, it's every Monday at 3 p.m. CET, Central Europe, 9 a.m. Eastern. I don't know what time that is. I think it's like 10 o'clock for you in Bali. Yeah.
I know because I wanted to join several times and it is too late, but I'm coming to Europe from March to May. So I would love to join because I know also a few people who were here in your session. Just had a message from Laura today that she's reading the book I offered her for her birthday 2 years ago, Tout le bleu du ciel, which is
yes, it's a beautiful book. Yes,
beautiful book that I have offered, I think 10 times. I don't know if it's translated in English now.
I don't think it is. But, no, I read it in French. And I will share this. The secret is I spent the last 20 minutes of reading closed up in the bathroom because I was reading it at night and I didn't want to wake up my husband with my tears. So I went into the bathroom and finished sitting on the toilet reading the book so that I didn't wake him up.
You're reading books like real physical books, or you're reading on a Kindle?
I do both. I do all three. So I have an audio I always have an audiobook. I usually listen to one book a week, and that's walking the
Okay.
dog or in the car going to get my children. And that's usually a first pass. So it's a book that I've heard of, and I'm not sure if I'm going to like it or not. And so I'll listen to it because I don't
Hmm.
have to be as engaged and I can listen on 2x speed. And then if I really like it, I don't even finish listening to it and then I buy it because for me, I need to interact with it. And then I also read on Kindle. That's usually just at night.
At night, it's very practice. I don't, and it helped me also to fall asleep, because if I have the light on and I have my book, then I will not fall asleep and I will read for hours. Yeah. Thank you so much, Theresa. It was such
Yeah,
a
you're
pleasure
welcome.
to talk about it. So if any one of you need an advice on books to read, I will put the contact and the LinkedIn link to Theresa's profile. Also, if you want to join the book reading hour every Monday at 3 CET, it's free.
Yeah, thank you, Natty. Thanks for having me.
Have a lovely day, and we will meet
I
again in
will.
the Fit for Facilitation community.
Yes, I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Bye bye.
Bye.